We are ready to get started with Level 2 Mission 1 of Steps to Statehood. Remember that in this level we will learn about how America was organized after the American Revolution and what happened to lead Indiana to become a state in the United States. Let's review our key point. Many events led to Indiana's statehood. Even after the French and Indian War and the Proclamation of 1763, people still fought for control of North America. Native Americans continued to be pushed off their land, and in order for Europeans to create settlements and colonies, England began to tax colonists without representation, causing the colonists to declare their independence and fight for it in the American Revolution. Many years would pass before the Northwest Territory was formed and the Enabling Act was passed. These events would ultimately lead to Indiana becoming its own state. Our big question is, what events most contributed to Indiana becoming a state? In this mission, we're going to find out about a couple more events that would lead us to becoming a state in the very near future. Our mission objective is to describe how the United States paid for its war debt. Remember, debt is money owed to other people for some purpose. Our challenges are: what caused the United States government to go into debt? How did the United States use the Northwest Territory to help pay its debt? How did the Land Ordinance organize the Northwest Territory? And what was the Northwest Ordinance? Make sure you will have those 4 challenges answered by the end of this mission by looking in your notes and by watching the video that is upcoming. The video will kind of review what we learned about last level, as well as preview what we'll talk about in this mission. Please give it your full attention. It will be very helpful to you.
In 1783, when the United States and Great Britain signed the Treaty of Paris, officially ending the War of Independence, these were the boundaries of the new nation: the Atlantic Ocean on the east, the Mississippi River on the west, Canada on the north, and Spanish Florida on the south. As we can see, that included much more than just the original 13 colonies. It included territory known as the Western Lands. Great Britain had won this land from France at the end of the French and Indian War. In 1763, when the war ended, France lost all of its territory in North America. Great Britain acquired French Canada, as well as the rich lands of the Ohio River Valley. American colonists moved right in. Native Americans living on the land attacked the settlers, and the British sent in troops to protect them. This was very costly. So, the British issued the Proclamation of 1763, stating that there could be no settlements west of the Appalachian Mountains. The colonists were furious. Things got worse when the British imposed new taxes on the colonists to pay for the soldiers that they had to send to the Western lands. All of this led directly to the Declaration of Independence. So, when America won the Revolution, it also won all of the British lands south of Canada and east of the Mississippi. The new United States now had to decide what to do with this land. At first, the states were given control, but that didn't work, so a new plan was developed. The plan was called the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. Under the Northwest Ordinance, once the population of an area totaled 5,000 free males who owned at least 50 acres of land, the people could elect an assembly and establish their own government. When the territory had 60,000 people, it could apply to become a new state. From all this territory came the states of Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin. A part of Minnesota was also in the territory. Kentucky was originally a western county of Virginia. It became a separate state in 1792. In 1796, Tennessee became the 16th state. The last 2 states in the original territory of the United States, Mississippi and Alabama, joined the Union in 1817 and 1819.
Expanding west. You saw in the video that the United States now had all this land west of the Mississippi that they had to deal with. Well, what would they do with it? As a result of the colonists winning the American Revolution, the British gave most of its land south of the Great Lakes and east of the Mississippi River to the newly formed United States. Several of the original 13 colonies had made claims on this land, but gave this land to the United States government. This allowed the government to begin to build a nation and work towards creating new states. However, and this will become a problem, the British in that land kept some of their forts. They didn't totally abandon them. They did keep some of their forts. What problem do you predict will happen because the British kept some of their forts? Go ahead and write down that answer in your notes before moving on. What problem do you predict will happen because the British kept some of their forts? Remember, they just fought this long revolution against the United States. They lost, and now they're saying, well, we're going to stick around for a little bit. What do you think will happen because they decided to stick around? The United States, just like the British before, had many debts from the American Revolution. Remember, George Rogers Clark and his men helped them win the war in this area. So they had to pay soldiers, and they also had to repay countries like France, who helped fight the British. These events didn't happen for free, and the United States, as a new country, didn't have a lot of money, so they had to figure out a way to get some money. Congress decided to use lands won in the war to help pay these debts. They called this land the Northwest Territory. They planned to sell the lands in the Northwest Territory to raise money. So they had all this land that nobody really had a use for. And so they said, we're going to give you this land for free, but after we give it to you, you can't say that we owe you anything anymore. So we're going to give you this land, but you can't tell us that you have anything or that we have to still pay you back any money. So this gave land to soldiers as payment for their service. George Rogers Clark and his men were some of these people who got this land, and they settled on the Ohio River and created a town called Clarksville after George Rogers Clark. Before the Northwest Territory could grow, the nation needed a set of rules about how to use it. So now all these people are starting to go over there and start to live there, but they needed some sort of rules to abide by while they lived there. They needed government and rules for dividing the land because they had all this land, and not everybody can have all the land. They have to divide it up somehow, and some of the land needs to be used for some reasons, and some of the land needs to be used for other reasons. They had to get that all figured out. So Congress passed the Land Ordinance of 1785, which divided the land in the Northwest Territory into townships. And here you see, this is from your book, how that actually looked. So here you see just a section of the Northwest Territory, kind of where nearby where we are in Fort Wayne, and they divided a section into different townships. The Land Ordinance of 1785, again, divided land in the Northwest Territory into townships. Each township was divided into 36 smaller sections, each covering a square mile. There you can see that cutaway from our map that shows each of the 36 different townships, I guess the sections within one township. And this is important to know, in each township, one section of the 36 was set aside for a school, as well as some of the land was set aside to be sold. So some of that land would later be sold again. In 1787, Congress passed the Northwest Ordinance, giving the territory a government and rules. So the Land Ordinance organized the land. Now they needed rules and laws, and that's what the Northwest Ordinance would do. The Northwest Ordinance set up rules for creating states from the Northwest Territory. It also guaranteed the rights of the Americans that were living there. It promised the freedom of religion, the right to a trial by jury, and it outlawed slavery. Slavery was illegal in the Northwest Territory. At this time, it was legal in other parts of the country, but the law said not in the Northwest Territory. There would be no slavery. Congress also appointed a man named Arthur St. Clair, who fought in the American Revolution, as governor of the Northwest Territory. And there you see a picture of Arthur St. Clair. This is the end of Mission 1. Make sure that you have your Got It questions, your challenges finished. and answered before moving on to the checkpoint. If you have any questions, please let me know. I will see you in Mission 2 if you do not have any questions.